So today we're reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 41. And before we begin speaking, I'd like to seek the blessings of all the assembled devotees and also of those who may be listening online. And we'd also like to invoke the blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're going to start with the Sanskrit recitation. Vyavasyatmika buddhir eka kurunandana bahushaka hyanantas cha buddhayo vyavyasayanam vyavasyatmika buddhir eka kurunandana bahusaka yananantascha buddhayo vyavyasayanam vyavasyatmika buddhir eka kurunandana bahusaka hyanantascha buddhayo vyavyasayanam vyavasyatmika buddhir eka kurunandana bahusaka hyanantascha buddhayo vyavasayanam. So I'm not sure if anyone would like to recite. So it's chapter 2, text 41. Vyavasyatmika buddhir ekya kurunandana bahusaka hyanantascha buddhayo vyavyasayanam. So, and the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So, and the purport again, those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. And purport. A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasyatmika intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 2262 states, Shraddha Sabdi Visaya Kahe Surda Nischaya Krishna Bhakti Kale Sarva Karma Kritahaya. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruit of activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane. For they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeve sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha. A person in Krishna consciousness is a rare good soul who knows perfectly that Vasudeva or Krishna is the root of all manifested causes. As by watering the root of a tree, one automatically distributes water to the leaves and branches, so by acting in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to anyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows: Yasya prasadat Bhagavat prasado, Yasya prasada nagati kutopi, Dayam suvam tasya yashastri sandhyam, Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied, and by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day, and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, not theoretically, but practically. When there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities, one who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. So the purport is, those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one, O child of the Kurus. The intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So one thing that comes to mind, it's a famous saying, a British saying, it says that one can be a jack of all trades and a master of none. So, and one thing that a Vaishnav is simple, so it's simplicity. So, in terms of the actual material nature, when one is actually entangled in material nature, it's said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that one who is actually able to as Kali Yuga progresses, someone will be known as expert by how they can actually just, provide in the material world. So that's what we see as expert in today's world, someone who is accomplished materially. So that's what's known as expert. But this is actually this is a materialistic outlook. And actually, when one is actually expert, that means that they're actually, real expertise is actually in knowing who we are and the goal of life and how to attain that goal of life. So that's actually expertise. And even actually as well, and to become actually expert is what I notice is one who is actually in material activities, due to material conditioning, they'll become more unrefined. So also one who is actually engaged in spiritual activities, they begin to manifest good qualities, and one of these is actually expert as well. So they actually become expert in different things. But one thing which I was actually meditating on is that the actual, in terms of actual what's material, and in terms of material and spiritual, there's a contrast there. That's this material world is a world of duality, so it's both the good and the bad. But that which is actually spiritual transcends that. So it says in the Bhagavad Gita, Matra Spartas Kunteya Chitosna Sukadukada Agamayo Piano Nityas Tamsasak Tishuksasva Bharata. So it mentions that good and bad, they come in this world just like the changing of the seasons. So this is just simply how good and bad manifests, and they're always going to be there. But the thing is that we can actually not be disturbed by that. And it says that Krishna Shuri Sama Mayahaya Adhikara Tahan Krishna Tahan Ahima Maya Adhikara. So Krishna is just like the sun, and Maya is just like darkness. So if we're in the presence of the sun, what is the question of darkness? So this is the example that spiritual life illuminates everything, because that's where Krishna is present. And so everything which is actually going away from that sun, which is Krishna, naturally becomes dark. And this is actually what is in this material world is things become more dark. And we have what's called the three modes of material nature. So everyone is actually under the influence of these three modes of material nature. So it's Prakriti, Kriyamana, Ani, Gune. Sorry. So it's Gune Karmani Sarvasaha, Vimuddha Atma Ahankara, Gardham Iti Manyate. So those are actually in the material world, they think that themselves are actually the doer of activities, but they don't realize that it's these three modes of material nature which is actually acting. So it's the three modes of material nature which are actually carrying out all the activities, and we're bewildered that we actually think it's us ourselves. So we're under the spell of these three modes of material nature. And also Srila Prabhupada, he speaks a lot about personalism and impersonalism. So this is what I was actually meditating on, is that that's what is actually personal and that which is impersonal. For me, as becomes very clear that everything impersonal is actually material and negative. So it's more demonic actually. And the goal of Krishna consciousness is to actually awaken a personal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's our goal. It's not to be impersonal. And it said that the last actual snare of Maya is to actually believe that we actually become God. And so this is actually complete negation or disrespect of a personal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one thing I was reflecting on is that it's mentioned according to the modes of material nature that, for example, in city life is epitomized by passion. So, and that's city life. And for me, even though it was still obviously, I grew up in a material place, but I grew up in a small country village. And you can just, it becomes very apparent the difference between the country and the city in terms of personalism and things like this. And something I was reflecting on is that that's the nature of even Goloka Vrindavan and the spiritual world, is that everything is very like in a small village setting, and it's very personal. So, in the city, it's not the actual normal place for society. Actually, it's meant to be more ruralized and agricultural. Is the ideal society where it's more mode of goodness, and that's one thing which I was reflecting on is that so those in actual material nature, their intelligence becomes many branched, so they become engaged and entangled in so many different things, and they become completely preoccupied, and they forget about the primary goal of life. So this is to be bewildered by the modes of material nature. And these modes of material nature are described as ropes. So they're binding us to the material world. And a good analogy which I find is that if we were all bound by the ropes of material nature, by these ropes, the modes of material nature, one who can actually free one who is bound has to be unbound themselves. So this person is the spiritual master. And this is the process that we actually have to seek shelter of a spiritual master and to please him. And that's the goal of life. So we don't want to go to Krishna directly. Well, it's not possible for us actually. So we need the mercy of the spiritual master. So it said, tad vidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So we must seek the spiritual master. We must ask him questions, inquire from him submissively, not to challenge him, and then to render service unto him. So by this we actually can please the spiritual master and get the blessings of the spiritual master. And then the spiritual master, Jnaninas Tattva Darshana, so he has seen the truth, and he can impart knowledge unto us. So this is by the mercy of the spiritual master. And so one thing I was reflecting on is that actually in the material world, it's said that one who isn't a devotee is said to have no good qualities. So this can be a startling statement, because we can see many people in the world are not necessarily devotees, but they seem to have good qualities. So I was wondering, how can we reconcile this? So the conclusion is that so the conclusion is that so because one is we can either serve Maya or Krishna. So Maya is Krishna's external energy of the material nature. So if one is actually serving Maya, all the good qualities are actually involved in that. So this can actually means when our good qualities are engaged, when our good qualities are engaged in something negative, this actually means that all that good qualities and all our accumulated piety from the past, where we have actually got the good qualities from, are now becoming negative. So this is the meaning of this actually. So even if one has so much bad qualities, but if they're actually endeavoring in devotional service, naturally in time they will become more refined and good qualities will start to manifest. But also, at least that all they have right now is engaged in Krishna's service. So it said in the Bhagavad Gita, 9:22. So ananyas chintayanto mam ye gyanam pariparsate. So those who are actually meditating on my transcendental form with exclusive devotion. And then Krishna says that I'll actually tesam nityabhiyuktanam and yoga shemam vahamyaham. So Krishna says that I will actually preserve what you have and carry what you lack. So Krishna will empower us. But on the other side, we can see that actually those like Hiranyakashipu, so those are actually, Hiranyakashipu is a demon in the Shastras. So those were actually materially engaged. Jai Jai Shri Radhakukulananda Ki, Jai Sita Ram Laxman Hanuman Ki, Jai Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki, Jai. So those who are actually materially engaged, they become more conditioned, they become more and more impersonal, and their heart becomes hard, like stone. And the example of this is Hiranyakashipu. So Hiranyakashipu, he had a 5-year-old son who was actually a devotee of Vishnu. And Hiranyakashipu, he found this very much, he couldn't actually handle this because Vishnu had killed his brother, Hiranyaksha, so as Lord Varaha, the boar incarnation. So this, he got very agitated, and when he found out that his son was actually a devotee, he was so disturbed by this that he tried to kill his son through so many different ways, with sharp weapons, throwing him off cliffs, putting him into places where there's numerous amounts of serpents and snakes. But Prahlad Maharaj was just, who is his son, was just completely taking shelter of Vishnu, and not even a single hair on his head was touched, actually. So this is actually a devotee. But the point is that one who becomes more and more contaminated, materially engaged, and they actually become so engaged that they forget about Krishna ultimately, their heart will become hard, and they'll actually become envious of the Supreme Lord. So this is also those whose intelligence is many branched. This is the path for them, actually. So that's why we need the mercy of the spiritual master and the Supreme Lord. So it's said in the Bhagavad Gita, Teshameva nukampartam ahama jnana jam tamaha nasyamatma bhavasto jnana deepana bhasvataha. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as within the heart as a Paramatma, he will destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So this means that he'll actually soften our heart as well, and we'll get purified. So he'll give us real knowledge. So there's a difference between actually knowing something philosophically and actually realizing it. So that's another important point, that it's known as there's two divisions, suras and asuras. And the point is that even the asuras, they have knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They know about devotional service, but they don't follow devotional service. So that's a big difference. And even Hiranyakashipu, there's so many examples. Ravana, they were well aware of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that there was a Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they were actually envious. And so that's the thing, that's the nature of this world as well. That so many people, they have an idea actually that there is something higher, but they're too self-absorbed to actually partake of that. And It's said in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna says, "O son of Kunti, that the senses are so strong and impetuous that they carry away the intelligence even of one who is steadfastly trying to control them." And that's actually the nature of this material world, that their intelligence gets carried away due to the actual allure of material life. So the material nature is too strong. Actually, it's actually it overwhelms us and overpowers us. So it's said in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 59. Krishna, he speaks about for one who's actually practicing detachment, and then they have a higher taste, paramdrisva nivartate. So only actually, even if we are practicing detachment mechanically, we still won't have the strength without an actual higher taste. So this higher taste is actually devotional service. And there's actually an example that even a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, he was doing service and he was painting, I believe, if I can remember correctly. And then Srila Prabhupada came in and he noticed that there was a packet of cigarettes beside the canvas. And he didn't get angry or anything, but he just said, he had advised him that he should give up smoking and so on. So he promised that he would try. But he continued the process, chanting and so on. And each day he smoked one cigarette less. Then in the matter of a week or more, he completely give up smoking. Yeah. So that's the nature of the material world, that it's only by the strength and the mercy of the spiritual master that we can actually give up all our bad habits and so on. So I'm wondering if there's any questions so far. No? Okay. So one thing that, oh yes, Ru, sorry.
Prabhu, can I ask you, why was Prahlad Maharaj so different to his father?
Well, I think the point is that with Prahlad Maharaj is that the actual birth isn't determined, it's not determined by, our birth doesn't determine our qualities as well. So I know there's a pastime now, if I can recall it, but there's a specific pastime how Prahlad Maharaj took birth. And it was actually Kashyapa and Aditya and Diti. So they were the parents of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. Hiranyakashipu was Prahlad's father. So due to their good austerities and so on, I know that that's why Hiranyakashipu was actually got the mercy of the Lord, which is being killed by the Lord. If I can try and, I'll have to try and think. I think I'll have to read on the pastime again to actually get the proper answer. Unless, can you remember Mahayana Vapu? Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah, so that's. But. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll just repeat what my Marva said there about Prahlad Maharaj. Due to his previous life, he ended up actually cleaning the temple floor of the temple, and he got the piety to actually be born, well, as a devotee, but I don't know why, I'm not sure why he was born in a demonic family, that's the thing. Yeah, yeah. And, yeah, and the thing was that, yeah, Prahlad was a natural devotee. Yeah, I'll try and research more, and I'll try and get back to you on that, actually. I know I've read it before, but I just, yeah, have to, thank you. So I wonder if there's any more questions. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So, Bhagavad Gita ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, all glories assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Thank you. It's at 7 p.m. Yes.